our space as an opportunity to be a platform, and it's encouraged a lot of great conversations that I've been able to witness. And so I just wanted to ask you to tell me a little bit about it and what inspires you behind it, and what does it mean. Please come in with it.
The very first marks on this was the charcoal. My friend Kim, Charles K, was doing an installation at KMAC a few summers ago.
Right.
And so we had brought these canvases in, which had been in my wife's family for a while. Because one of her brothers is a painter. They stretched these canvases out back in the 70s, and he never got to painting on these ones. So they had been in the family, collection for a while. So Kim came to town, we broke them out, and she integrated them into her installation at KMAC, and she drew the Please Come In and set it up as like as an entry to her, to her installation. So after she left town, I took the canvas to my studio and then just started building on it from there. The paint, I think that this was part of the original part was the white and the blue paint are striping paint for you paint like in a parking lot, like industrial striping paint. So thinking of the white lines offering so much of the kind of like structure, building blocks, organization, like kind of like the mentalized part of like how do you organize a space? So like how do you keep orderliness, and versus the blue paint was intended for accessible parking spaces. So I was thinking about like that accessibility and what does that offer? So like the contrast of kind of structure and order versus accessibility and openness. It came to ultimately be a reflection for me on like the human mind always seeking to like understand and create order and to like separate and to structure, have a structured view versus like the kind of natural evolution of the organic world with much more of a just a call and response type of evolution. So the fluidity of like natural evolution versus certainly people are part of, and we are a part of the natural world, and our mind is a part of us. But it's almost like the human mind has taken on its own evolution of like creating its own virtual world of like concepts like borders. The fact that like we seem to agree that like there are actual divisions between people and places and things, but that's all those divisions happen within our minds. But those divisions, like once you get down to like the cellular level of any organic thing, it's like those borders start to break down. And so this was a lot about that reflection of kind of what if you take that invitation to just integrate yourself into the natural world, meaning each other, meaning the food that we eat, meaning like every component of life. Like if you allow yourself to become integrated without seeing separateness. These cards.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the cards.
The Rolodex cards. I was cleaning out my grandparents' house after they, had moved on, and this was just their old Rolodex card. So it was this for me. Integrating this was a lot about that. You really start to see all the how we understand ourselves in the context of others. If it's like, the guy who cuts the grass, or like, the lady at the, the store that, help, whatever you, that, family members are you got my uncles, their contact, my dad's work number. Like, this is like really personal, like family stuff, but really seeing ourselves in the context of those that we keep around us and understanding interdependence beyond independence, right? So, because we, and like, especially in the West, in the Western mind, like we really like to think of ourselves as being independent.
Right.
We even have a whole day celebrating, this idea of like being separate from where we come from and like standing on our own.
It's amazing how you marry both the idea of how we're we want to have this structure and this independence and this framework that sort of, and I feel like that's like a survival mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
Set
It has
up
its
these,
place,
these
yeah.
boundaries so you know where not to step to hurt yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's needed in some respects. But then you have like this side, I just feel like sort of realizing the organic flow and how things are connected in many more complex, beautiful ways. And so it's like the marriage of the creativity and the evolution of things and the structure that sort of leads to survival. And then in the middle you have like, please come in, like bring this all together. So I was wondering about like the transition, like what is the, and even with the texture change here and the splotch there, like what is the transition mean?
So
Tell me about that.
I was really thinking about these ideas being pushed around of border walls, here in this country, they've proven to have the effect that they've had in other countries, but like, now that we're thinking about integrating massive walls here, that was clear, obviously a big consideration, but playing around with building a landscape through a flowing method rather than a rigid construction. So I was thinking about this as like literally developing continents with populations. And for me, it was very much about like landmass, like thinking about like when you look at a map, like that always blew me away growing up in school. And, you presented a map of the United States, and it's like, well, what's above it and what's below it? Nobody knows. It's like Canada doesn't exist, and like Mexico doesn't exist, and there's just these hard lines, and it's like, well, how does a continent get formed with these hard lines? And even like between all the states that we have here, it's just like these the only things that made sense were the tributaries and the rivers and the lakes, and it's like. So it was also just kind of really thinking about that, like again, the ideas of how we separate ourselves from each other with these imagined, these agreements, these mentalized divisions, and yeah. So
I was very excited to, and now I have even more context when I'm telling folks about it. I've shared what it means to me, but I appreciate you telling that story.
wow.
It speaks of.
Cheers. Yeah. Pleasure, Charles.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.